Have you ever witnessed a genuinely nice person get backstabbed for no apparent reason? What happened? I found out a colleague hadn't applied for a big promotion, so I asked why she had shown a lot of interest in the past, having covered the position quite enthusiastically. She told me that she had been off for a few weeks and on her first day back had given another colleague a lift home, massively out of her way. It was common knowledge in the office a vacancy was coming up and we were just waiting for HR to open up applications, so whilst driving it came up, but the other person said that applications hadn't opened yet and they hadn't heard anything about the role in a while. Applications closed the following day and I know for fact the person who denied knowing about the vacancy had already put their own application in a few days before. My colleague missed out on the role and we all learned there was a snake in the office. What's worse is the petty asshole never stood a chance of even getting an interview for the role because she was known as lazy and quite argumentative. George, nice guy at a hardware store I used to shop at. He liked being busy and wasn't a big talker, so while the rest of the people at the store were standing around gossiping or on their phones, George would be straightening shelves, sweeping, etc. He was also very good about explaining DIY stuff to folks and was always helpful in pointing out the safest way to do something or giving you tips to save money. He worked there over 20 years and was the first guy fired in the recession because the manager thought George was too nice to resent being fired. George went to work at competitor in the next town and once word got out that George was over there, half of the store's business followed him. That hardware store is now a walk-in clinic. Too nice to resent being fired. Row, good at your job, provide excellent service. Sure, you won't mind if your whole livelihood was jeopardized by being laid off, because you're just so nice. As if being a good and friendly person was enough to pay your bills while you're unemployed. My pops worked for an oil company, started entry level and worked his way up. I honestly cannot remember him ever taking a sick day. Quiet man, never caused a problem. The kind of guys you would want to work in your company. Full retirement was at 35 years. They laid him off at 32 just so they wouldn't have to pay full retirement. It crushed him. I watched him decline, struggle with depression and eventually die a few years after being laid off. It's just sad that corporations can't honor employees who give their lives honoring the corporations. I used to work with this girl who honestly is one of the top 5 nicest people I've met in my life. She really did love this job too and cared about it. She actually had 2 jobs where she started at 4 AM for one of them and the other job, the one I was at, ended at 10-11 at night. After all this she'd give me rides home too cause I didn't have a car yet. One day her sister told her if she had half a brain she'd ask to be a server at our location because she had been working her butt off for basically a year there, working double shifts every day. Not only did management not let her be a server, once she quit, another girl who came a month before she quit ended up getting promoted to server by the end of that month. She was 3 years younger than her and had no experience serving. They just hated her for some reason and I'll never understand it. I'm guessing the new hire was a better suck up than your friend. Some people don't hire promote employees to better the workplace but to have someone to stroke their own egos. I used to work with a lady in an old IT department who was basically everyone's work mom. She did her job but also liked to make sure everyone was happy. She kept track of everyone's birthdays so she could make them a cake or cookies. She would offer to cover for you if you needed to leave early or take a long lunch or anything. Just overall a great person. Well, she was also one of the oldest, in tenure, not age, employees at the company and knew the CEO and most of the managers well. At one point there was an opening for a manager in a department she used to work in before moving to IT. We all told her to go for it. The CEO herself even suggested that she go for it. So everyone assumed she was a shoo-in and that the interview was just a formality. So, after the interview, they give the job to someone else. My co-worker feels really hurt and betrayed because why would the CEO push her to apply and then not hire her for the position? Months go by and the role is vacant again, restructuring. The new manager got shuffled somewhere else, and again the CEO and some of the managers of other departments tell my co-worker to apply. She is reluctant but eventually she does, and they do it to her again. At that point she took it personally and felt like she did something wrong or wasn't a good employee or something. It killed me to see that crappy company break her spirit like that. Becky, if you somehow read this, you're the best and way better than that place deserves. There was this girl in high school who was probably the kindest person I have ever met. During a football game, she would always have 200 or so cupcakes to pass out. All types of different flavors and designs on them, and everyone loved them. Well, a group of girls didn't like the attention she was getting at all and asked to help pass out the cupcakes to help. Instead, they took the cupcakes and caked them quite literally on the girl's new car. It was everywhere. The windows, the exhaust, the wheels, and a back window was also open a bit, so anything they didn't smear on the car was shoved into that window. I felt terrible seeing the car afterwards, and only one of the girls took the blame for it and didn't even end up getting into too much trouble. Sorry about your cupcakes, Hannah. Update. Hello. Everyone asking for an update on Hannah. I don't have one. She seems to live a perfectly normal happy life with 2 kids and no, she's not a baker. Although that would be a great way to end the story. Hannah didn't deserve that. What crap heads. I was a McDonald's manager and there was this kid who worked grill fryer. He was a little dumb, but this kid tried and had an amazing attitude even when the kitchen crap on his every move. Loved that kid. Anyway, the tiles around the oven and fryers needed to be relaid, so they were, and cardboard was thrown over them to cover the new grout. I told the kid when he came in, be careful, blah blah blah, and then it happened. He was moving from the cabinet above the oven to the fryers to the right and slipped. He wasn't freaking around. I tried to catch him but missed and he hit hard. I witnessed the entire thing from inches away and wrote the incident report personally. He literally stepped on it, gently, and the grease from the kitchen must have built up because he straight went back. Head hit tile. He had a concussion, but was otherwise alright except some back pain, which I think was worse than he let on. He filed for workman's comp and they denied it. Said he had a history of unsafe workplace practices or something formal for frick off. Yet they didn't call me, the certified shift manager on duty, or even acknowledge the incident report. Man, I worked at McDonald's at the turn of the century. They had those huge monitors in the grill area and one fell off the ceiling and landed on an older lady working there. She messed her shoulder up bad and she never came back. 5 years later, the district manager was complaining about how much money she made in workman's comp. She had a full-size TV drop in her from at least 7 feet up. A woman I taught with, Mary, who was the sweetest, most helpful patient special ed teacher I have ever met, finished her degree and she and I started teaching the same year. She worked miracles with kids everyone else just gave up on. The principal was new to the school and let her go through 2 years of new teacher probation and let her think she was getting a continuing contract. He ousted her because he had final say on non-renewal and because she was probationary. He didn't have to provide a justification. The justification was that he installed a 25-year-old leggy blonde teacher from his former school. She hated kids. Man, I feel bad for her and also for the kids. I wish she found a better job somewhere else. I went to high school with someone who had some form of mental disability. I can't say for sure what, but I would hazard a guess at Asperger's syndrome. She was a very nice person, very outgoing in that she was always trying to make friends, but had a very hard time picking up on social cues and social norms. She was easily peer pressured, unfortunately, and oftentimes people would convince her to do things because they thought it would be funny, and she either didn't know to say no or maybe just wanted to take a risk to become friends. She was always kind and didn't have a bad bone in her body. It was extremely sad to see such a kind person so easily manipulated and treated poorly. On the list of things I saw happen to her, smoking cigarettes because the cool kids told her to, ultimately leading to her becoming a full-time smoker, smoking weed on lunch break with the cool girls in the forest, and then being left in the woods not going back to class because she was scared. Someone spiked her drink in homeroom and by 10 AM she was drunk and didn't know what had happened. And the ultimate insult, the ultimate Noah get the boat moment for me, was hearing I never knew who did it or I would have said something. Someone surprising her with a lunch they brought for her. This lunch consisted of a sandwich that was filled with magic mushrooms. This absolute waste of a human fed this poor girl, someone who the whole school knew had a mental disability, a very large quantity of magic mushrooms and just let her unknowingly hallucinate at school. She was suspended for doing drugs at school. What a joke. And if memory serves me, she never came back, or maybe left at the end of that school year. That's legit assault. They should have faced legal action for that. Poor girl. My dad literally supported his family after moving to America for years. He sent money to his dad and stepmother, plus paid for his half-siblings' education, despite barely scraping by in the US. Fast forward to today, and all but one of them are doing super well financially. None of them showed up to my mom's funeral or did anything to offer support to my dad. Despite overcoming incredible abuse from his stepmother, I was still never allowed to call her out on it and always told to look at things from her side, which was not justifiable in any way. Yeah, people will never think twice about taking advantage of or using you for something, but soon as their needs are settled, you're less than crap. I am sorry this happened to you and your family. My little niece at 5 years old asked her mother to stop the car and let her rescue a turtle in the middle of the road. While they were standing patiently by the roadside waiting for traffic to clear, a couple of teenage boys aimed for the turtle and ran right over it in front of her. She cried for a long time. I know it was just a turtle, but to intentionally hurt and horrify a little girl just trying to help a fellow creature is sick. I hope those boys have matured by now, maybe having kind little girls, or boys of their own. Melvin and Marjorie had been married 40 years and looking forward to a comfortable retirement when Melvin told Marjorie God had called him to be a missionary in the Philippines. Marjorie, being a good Christian, supported her husband's decision, bought him luggage and drove him to the airport as a good wife does. Melvin wrote emails every day talking about his ministry and how things were going and asked Marjorie to send him money occasionally. Months passed this way and soon it was time for Melvin to come home. And he did, with a new 18-year-old bride. As it turns out, Melvin had divorced Marjorie in secret by forging her names on a do-it-yourself divorce kit and filing it with the court. Marjorie defaulted, of course, and the divorce was finalized without her ever knowing. So when Melvin returned from the Philippines, he dropped the bomb that not only had they been divorced for a year and a half, but he now had this new wife and Marjorie would need to move out of the house and into another, which he graciously agreed she could have, and the divorce she never knew about. Coldest thing I've ever seen. I went to a very poor high school. There was a girl who would volunteer to work concessions and baked hundreds of cookies to sell and raise money for girls' athletics, as she herself played 3 sports. Over her 4 years, she had to have raised over $1,000. Her senior year, she was a manager for the volleyball team. Having been a starter the year before, I assumed she was injured and asked when she would be able to play again. I was shocked to hear she had been cut from the team. No one knew why, but you could tell she was heartbroken. We had a coach in high school that did this with all the seniors except 2, so the team could be really young and slowly build up over a few years. Really crappy to the departing seniors. My cousin is genuinely one of the nicest people I have ever had the privilege of knowing. She is an elementary school teacher who apparently kicks butt at teaching too because she has won numerous teaching awards. Her husband lost his job in the recession and that's when she said he turned into a different person. He ended up cheating on her, claiming he was driven to it because my cousin is infertile. She begged him to see a couples counselor. He agreed. She set up and did all the work to get the appointment, even though he was unemployed and the one that cheated. The morning they were supposed to go, he gave her divorce papers. She was crushed. Good news is, more than a decade on she is doing better than ever. Has met a great guy that worships her. The guy has a son and they all get along great with the boyfriend's ex-wife. They all even celebrate holidays and vacation together. She deserves every drop of happiness. Nice. A happy ending. I'm glad she met someone who deserved her. My mom allowed my sister and her alcoholic husband to stay with us in our already cramped house with 3 teens and my sister and IBC. They got kicked out of his parents' house for being disrespectful. My mom has brain cancer and it's affected her memory. She cannot make new memories. They would say things like, oh don't worry she won't remember, or just do it and tell her you told her but she forgot. I don't remember ever being that red-eyed before. The real kicker was after all of that, my sister's husband did not allow anyone to touch my niece for the first month she was living there, even though he hurt her while drunk. Frick that dude. I'm still trying to learn to forgive my sister. Don't treat my mother like crap. Period. This girl I used to work with. She was so nice and personable. Everyone at work liked her. She loved her family and was close to them. And she was incredibly dedicated to her husband, whom we all thought was kind of a dong. She put up with a lot from him because she believed so deeply in her marriage and the commitment she made. This girl suffered through 5 miscarriages, 2 of which happened in the time I knew her. One was very early and she just kinda took in stride. The second was absolutely heartbreaking. She lost the baby at like 28 weeks. We all really thought that was going to be her miracle baby. Not only that, the epidural screwed up and left her leg partially paralyzed for a while. It was awful, but she carried on. She doubled down on her faith in her religion, stuck with her husband, worked extra hard at work, and kept trucking and being a delightful person. Then the miracle baby actually came. She had preeclampsia and preterm labor, and delivered a preemie who spent a large chunk of my co-worker's time on maternity leave in the NICU. What should have been a happy ending and a completed family ended in backstabbing. Her husband was cheating on her, and spent a long weekend with his side chick draining their bank account, in a blind fit of trying to force the family she dreamed of into existence. This poor girl tried to forgive him, and after spending all day in the NICU with their baby, went home and washed all his clothes, cleaned the house, and cooked his favorite meal. The next day he went to visit her and the baby in the hospital and asked for a divorce. Just to be extra crappy, he ended up dumping the side chick and reunited with an old ex-girlfriend and started playing Instagram stepdad to her 2 kids while neglecting to pay child support to his own. She's doing worlds better now, but there was a period of time during the divorce when he was being crappy about things like who gets to keep kitchen utensils, where me and my co-workers wished he would just die. In high school we had a genuinely great IT teacher, just a swell guy who was good enough at teaching, but what made him excel so much is his down-to-earth attitude. He treated us like mature adults, with respect. In his class the students and him were on the same talking level. None of that "I am a teacher, you're the students" bullcrap. He just had a sort of treat people the same way you wish to be treated attitude, and everyone loved him. He had to leave because the school higher-ups were freaking horrible and liked the screamy hag type of teachers more, and he constantly had disagreements with them over issues I've mentioned above. As far as I know, he became loved in the next school he went to as well, but I feel like he's disappointed in me because I was always his favorite and I didn't talk to him once he left. I hate Facebook. Maybe see if you can find a school email to reach out. A good friend of mine got cheated on by his girlfriend after they were together for over 3 years. He was the best to her. He literally would empty his bank to get her things and she was obviously leeching off of him. He was so nice to her though. Sadly after that happened to him he changed and became an butthole himself. There were 2 people in our circle of friends who had been together for about 2 years since shortly after first meeting. They were always together, always happy, and pretty much a model couple for the rest of us. She was effortlessly beautiful inside and out, gentle, thoughtful, supportive and enthusiastic with all of us. An absolute sweetheart and a lovely person. He was fun to be around, smart, reliable and had his crap together. Then she goes to the other side of the country for a few weeks to visit with family. At some point before this trip he found out that the sister of someone else in our circle, let's call them L, was very into him. She lived an hour away with her parents. As soon as the GF was gone he was giggle bragging about planning to hook up with the sister. He told everybody about it and he and Elle would laugh and joke about it like it was a jolly win. It made the rest of us very uncomfortable. So eventually the sister, who we'd never seen before, shows up one weekend to hang out. It was awkward with a lot of wink wink nudge nudge, and then they did the deed and she went home and we never saw her again. The BF and L had some more high fives. Oh, and somebody called the GF to rat him out and she wound up taking him back anyway after she got back. It was all so strange and I felt awful for her. She didn't deserve it at all. To not only have her BF cheat on her but also treat it like the grand opening of a chain store. I like to think I'm nice. A few years ago I went through an entry-level tech program and met a group of people that I regularly hung out with. 2 months after meeting them, my birthday comes up and I'm not into huge gatherings, but they all insisted we have a party and we go out after. So, I planned a party at my apartment. I invited them all to attend then go out after. However, I noticed hours before the party that none of them were answering my messages. Thinking I was skeptical, I trusted they would still come. Nobody came. Nobody decided to tell me they were all not coming. I saw on Snapchat later they went out without me, and they all wondered why I was angry on Monday morning at work. My buddy who was an actor in a few Star Trek movies, 90210 stuff back in the day, said when he got out to Hollywood it was so cutthroat that he told a friend that he had a gig out in the desert in the morning. When he got up his tires were slashed and that friend had showed up on set saying he was able to work. Fake nice is a real thing in CA. My dad moved my family and I to America to work as an administrator for this guy's business. The guy had started a private company related to healthcare. He didn't have business experience but could see patients. My dad, though new to this field, is a genius and picks up things really quickly. He turned his one business that wasn't profitable, incorporated other healthcare type businesses, and basically branched that one location to 5-6 locations in various states. He made the guy into a multi-millionaire just by himself. The guy kept promising my dad he'd make him a partner but kept delaying it. Eventually, my dad was like, at least pay me the salary as administrator for the branches I do the work for. Don't even give me partnership. My dad made around $80K and should have been paid $300K plus. The guy couldn't fathom the idea, but my dad was literally saving him all this money, and the guy was so dumb. He didn't understand all the business nor the government approval aspects of it. My dad is a confident guy though loved by everyone, and I think that made the owner jealous. Eventually, my dad said, "I'm leaving." The guy thought no big deal. Good riddance. Well, half the staff of the entire company left right after my dad left. They only stayed cause they loved my dad. My dad would do Christmas parties and bonuses and made the company a home. And the owner always thought this was just waste of expenses. But my dad cared about the people themselves. A year after my dad left, we found out 5-6 of the branches failed. The company went from making millions in profits to barely profitable. Many branches failed the government inspections. Some people just don't see the value of people and just see the dollar amount. Although my parents make a decent living now, I wish this hadn't happened and they'd be more comfortable. But hopefully, I'll bring that to them as I am just a student right now. When my mom, who was, and still is, the most caring woman I have ever gotten the chance to be around, was cheated on by my frankly not so good, at the time, father. Luckily he has gotten his act together and isn't nearly as bad as he could have gotten, and luckily my mom saw the signs he wasn't gonna be the best guy in a couple years. This truly crushed her and she still can't date anybody without feeling that she's not good enough for them or something else. I feel sorry for her. Everyone should be allowed to feel appreciated by people they want to hang out date with. I am glad to read that your father became better though. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.